Jai Shiva. A lot of people have asked me why I do not, use the English translation of all the Hindi and Sanskrit words or the terms that I keep using. And why do I prefer to say prana instead of calling it a breath, or chittavrittis instead of calling it a mental, emotional, psychological patterns, or vasanas similarly, or chitta, warehouse of all your patterns. Similarly, there are a lot of Hindi and Sanskrit words and terms that I use while I'm speaking, and I those who are seekers, they are the seekers of wisdom actually, right? What are you seeking? The truth. Truth is wisdom. So you are supposed to learn all this. And why I am saying that is because simply translating a word into the English language, which does not have any vocabulary for the subtle domain, the subtle aspect of life, subtle aspect of human existence. When you do that, then you are translating something that existed in the subtle domain to the to you are approximating it to the words or terms which are only about the physical aspect, the gross aspect. So you lost the subtlety right then and there. When we say bhutas, panchabhutas, 5 elements. What are panchabhutas, 5 elements? I have explained that in my Sankhya Darshan video, and you can watch those 3 videos to understand what is meant by panchabhutas or 5 elements. But the moment we say panchabhutas, it's about the subtle existence of life. And there's a rough translation that happens, and approximation happens to the from subtle to the physical aspect of life. So you call Prithvi as earth, it translated to earth. You translate the another element of jal as something like water or fluid, and then you translate Agni to fire. No, then you lose the entire meaning and you miss the point, period, if you do that. Why this is so is because the subtle aspect and all these terms that I keep using, all these terminology of yogic sciences, okay, all this terminology has a very deep rooted networked kind of existence in themselves. Okay, so when we say prana is not just the breath that human beings take or the vital force that human beings have. It's such a word where you have to understand what, in order to understand what prana is, you actually have to understand yourself. You have to increase your consciousness, experiment on your prana, your breath that you take, and you have to understand prana as a vital force. So then you have to understand your energy structures that are there in the human body, and then your own pranmaya kosha, the energy body, the ethereal body, you have to study and understand through direct perception. Then you have to also study plants and how the prana works for plants, how the prana is in the rocks, how the prana is in the cosmos in general. So you have to understand from micro to macro, from human to the cosmos. Everything in between is included. You have to understand it in that way. So, but when you translate, okay, prana, then it suddenly becomes gross. It's not subtle anymore. English language does not have subtle words for subtle dimension of life at all. So it becomes gross. And now those who are reading just the English books, focusing only on the English terminology, they are just getting a very, very tiny part, just the tip of the iceberg, actually. That's what they are understanding whole life. Until unless somebody has taken a pain to write just a book on prana. One word, one book. It's that deep. It's that networked kind of a terminology. And it's so much rooted into the ancient yogic practices. So much rooted into that. Until you understand all that context around it, not going to understand the words. It's exactly another example. Another way of understanding this is you can study fish only to an extent. When you take the fish out of the ocean, or you take the fish out of the pond or lake or wherever that fish was, you can only study it to that extent, to some extent, the physical extent, right? You can dissect it. Fish will be dead, right, when you bring it out of the their ecosystem. If they are in ocean, or they are in lake or pond or wherever they are, if you take them out of their ecosystem, first thing is that they are dead. All right. Now, from the dead fish, you can learn the anatomy, you can learn the physiology. That's it. So that's why now the modern scientist understood that part, that okay, we cannot always, catch a fish and bring it into the lab and dissect it and study. We have to go to the ecosystem of the living fish and let it live there. Watch it. See how it mates, how it lays her eggs, how what the different kinds of breeding cycles are for that fish. When is it going to lay egg? When is it going? How many offsprings, it's going to create? What chemicals are released? What kind of a sentient being that fish is? What kind of intelligence, if any? You know, every sentient being has intelligence in them. That's how they survive. Are they social fish, or are they attacker kind of and lonesome kind of fishes? So you can study and learn more about something, completely about something. The wholesome view you will get, the wholesome wisdom about something you will get only when you study something in its own ecosystem. So you see, it's the exact same thing. Until you study something in its own ecosystem. And now how to do that? It's not an easy thing. Not at all an easy thing. It's another example could be, some tradition or some word or something you get from some other country, some other language like Japanese or Chinese language or something. But if you translate it in English, you lose the entire cultural perspective. And until you have that cultural perspective, you may know the translation or English for all the Chinese thing or all the Japanese thing or all the Hindi or Sanskrit thing. You may be able to speak perfectly in English, but you are not actually able to propound the wisdom. You are not able to it's a very abstraction. It's an abstraction actually. So you're not able to get the complete wisdom, the complete picture of it. So whenever nowadays a lot of words have been included, a lot of Hindi and Sanskrit words have been included in English. But is there and they have been defined that way, but yeah, a lot of words are not, especially related to yogic sciences. A lot of terms, a lot of words still have to be understood right in their ecosystem. So you have to learn the language. You have to learn Hindi or Sanskrit and or read the commentary on such things by the writers or authors who have lived in Hindu culture, in the yogic system of India, because their commentary is still way far better in English, is still way far better. Their explanation is way far better because they have the cultural roots to be there. Now, it's the same thing like, age gap between the married partners in one country may be looked upon just legally. Okay, the girl should be 18, 21, or boy should be 21 or 18 years or whatever that is in different countries. But in some cultures, it could be a very different thing and they may have a completely different logic. So just because something doesn't fit your lens, your perception, your idea, your culture, doesn't mean it's right or wrong or less important in any way. That culture is using it, that culture is surviving through that, right? So exactly in the same way, you need to understand how these things work. Now, another reason that I'm explaining all this today is because, you see, in last 100 years or so, more than 100 years actually, whichever book was written about Kundalini and chakras in English, suddenly the entire diamond, they changed the dimension of the topic itself. The Kundalini and chakras, they are subtle dimension. Okay, but see, the referral point for people who are trying to describe Kundalini or chakras, just because they do not have that cultural roots or the entire knowledge system or the network of web that network, that web that these two words are connected to. So they are looking at it abstraction. So they compare it with, okay, solar plexus is around your, solar plexus chakra is around your, first of all, calling it solar plexus to the Manipura chakra. And then, saying that it's around your navel. Really? Reference point became physical. While in ancient text or in Yoga Darshan, or if you study these things, the entire prana kosha, pranamaya kosha, okay, the ethereal body, the energy body that you have, where you have all these chakras and description of all these chakras, and there's nothing physical about it, first of all. Nobody ever referenced the chakras by saying Anahata is in the center of your chest or that Agnya chakra is here. So only to those people whose perspective is still is through the physical focal point, physical existence, to them things are referred to it in this way. Because that entire lens, that perception of subtle aspects of life is missing, especially to those who have learned just English language. And, I'm sorry to say this, and this is not an offense in any way, or, a problem with the language or anything like that. So don't take it that way. But all I'm trying to say is that then you're just missing the whole thing. The asanas, the kriyas, the mudras, the entire science of yoga. If you start connecting everything to physical body, to energy body, to this body, to that body, if you keep on just taking up the physical nature of everything, the gross nature of everything, and because you are learning in English, then you are missing the whole point. So that is what happened to all the Kundalini and Chakra books. All the writers, those, especially the Western writers and those who wrote about these things, they just missed the real thing. They just tried to study and dissect the fish by taking it outside the pond, and they just did not know what the ecosystem is that fish can survive, or studying, getting the wholesome knowledge of it. And that is why I see many people keep saying that I want to attain Samadhi, I want to have enlightenment, but without raising my Kundalini. A very famous guru said that in the Western country. I do not want to name him, but see how dissected and out of culture, out of the pond, the lake, the ocean, out of the ecosystem, abstract kind of wisdom, knowledge this is. And that's why we call such knowledge as Bhranti Gyan. Bhranti Gyan means, illusionary knowledge, knowledge which deludes you even more. See, even the word Gyana cannot be translated to wisdom. It's not a correct translation at all. If you study the definition of wisdom, it's the applied knowledge. And that which you perceive through your five senses. No, Gyan doesn't mean you perceive only through your five senses. It includes all the things that you have got in your entire existence. So it's that kind of a perception. And that's how you get the wisdom. And it's the wisdom which you download into your Vijnanamaya Kosh. Not the wisdom which you calculate or see or read through your, it's like, applying it on all panchakoshas, all your five sheets, the body layers that you have got. So whenever somebody, any guru, not just me, any guru is explaining something to you which includes Hindi or Sanskrit words, then you need to, words or terms, then you need to try to do your own research and study a little bit more and try to understand that word, that term in its entirety. Because only then you are understanding it. If you keep calling pranayama as breathing exercise, no. You will keep breathing exercise. Oh, you will keep doing breathing exercise whole life. You'll never become meditative. Because you're not understanding the point there. You're missing it. So try to do your homework. Keep a journal or a notebook where you can note down, okay, this is the word this guru, this book was speaking about, this is the term. There is a lot of Google search you can do. There are a lot of actual Hindi Sanskrit dictionaries that you can use. There are very good knowledge base that exists about language and terms and yogic, especially about the yogic sciences. A lot of gurus have explained so many things. So try to learn about the fish by keeping it in the ecosystem. Don't take it out, let it die and just discover the whatever damn physiology she has got. Try to understand the entire ecosystem with it. Only then you will understand or know the fish. So this is very important because yogic journey is about the wisdom. It's about the truth. And you're not going to get that if you take the fish out of the ecosystem. Okay? Namaste. Jai Shiva.